WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Guess what I have? I have a handfill, yes, it's a 200 milliliter, not the 700 milliliter, from Bunnahabhain, handfill exclusive, warehouse number 9. So you can see the label here very briefly. Focus, focus, focus. Very, very good. So cask 110762. It is 55.1% ABV. Vintage, it was distilled 2017, bottled 2020. Now, I was at the Distillery Bunnahabhain in May 2022. So this has been basically at the distillery now for almost 2 years as a handfill. Why? Well, we all know the answer to that one. Number one, it was COVID. Number two, the gift. The guest center was actually relocated. They tore down one of the warehouses. They tore down a few warehouses that were no longer actually viable to repair. They had fallen into disrepair. And they built a new visitor center, which was beautiful, which was wonderful, which was great. And so also they weren't accepting visitors there for a while. And so I guess they timed it perfectly or whatever. All right, so this is Whiskybase number 171367. So if you want to look at the big bottle, it's going to be 186091, just in case. But there are 17 votes for that. So let's see here. Oh, a couple of people actually voted on that. Interesting, interesting, interesting. So, so I'm going to pour this and then talk about that. The big bottle is 140 pounds, not euros, pounds. And the little bottle was, I think, 40 or 45. I read both online, so I don't remember. I have to look at my receipts. So, what we have here is an interesting distillery. I would just like to very briefly talk about the history. So, founded in 1881. Everywhere you're going to see here, for example, 1881. So, interesting enough, what they did is, look at this one, and look at this one. So they just put that capsule on top of that little, it's not a tax stamp, but it's like that. So you can almost see this just show through at the bottom a little bit. I thought that was cute. All right, so in 1881, the distillery was founded and relied entirely on sea trade. There was not a road that went to the distillery. I did not know that. And then around the distillery, a small village appeared. They had a nice little school, they had housing, they had a store, and so on. Everything went via the sea path. So there was a pier, and there was a lot of whiskey knowledge being made there. And they everything was supplied by these little boats. And it was a little bit of an adventuring seafarers that actually took everything back to the mainland with maybe even too many casks or many, many casks filled with whiskey. So what happened was that actually 1930s, the distillery was closed for a little bit, and then a big change happened at the distillery in the 1960s. So a new road was built to the distillery. So from 1881 up until the 1960s, the entire distillery was only supplied by the water routes. And then in the 60s, I drove the road up to Adnaho, and then you land in Port Askey. The first road to the right is Islay. The second road is then to Adnaho and to Bunnahabhain. Basically, the world in Islay ends at Bunnahabhain. You can't go much further. The water supply is up to the north. You can hike for another 20 kilometers or so, but the road basically ends there. And so that changed many things. It changed the way the distillery was actually then supplied, and they actually had enough capacity then to double their stills from 2 to 4 in then 1963. In 1979, there was the first time that the 12-year-old, this is going to be my comparison whiskey, was actually introduced to the market. So the Bunnahabhain 12 has been on the market since 1979. That's a fairly long time, to be very honest. And it's a very nice, very good whiskey. As I've said in my other videos, I like this. I do not love it. I do not adore it. I do not worship it like some of my friends might do. But it is a solid, good, great whiskey. Now the prices over here in Germany used to be about 38 euros. Now it's gone up to about 44, maybe even 48. I've seen some shops selling it for 60, which I think is a very steep price. I'm actually going to have a little bit of a new list. The best best 12-year-old single malts available in Germany, under 40 euros, under 50 euros. I'm sure this bottle will be there someplace. All right, very good. So 1993 was another year in the history of Bunnahabhain. That was the last time a boat docked at the pier, and the road was starting then actually deemed to be the most suitable route for the goods going back and forth. So in 2003, Burns Stewart's distillers bought the brand, not just Bunnahabhain, but also Black Bottle, which was a very, very important thing. And they started changing the products. The 12-year-old was repackaged. The 18-year-old was introduced. There was even a 25-year-old that was introduced. And then something happened in the last chapter of our lives here. In 2010, Bunnahabhain started producing only non-chill filtered products at natural color at 46.3%. And in 2014, Burns Stewart's merged with Distill, and ever since then, Distill has owned Bunnahabhain, together with Deanston and Tobermory, by the way. All right, so and 2021, they opened the new visitor center that I was able to visit in May of 2022. Good, this has given that whiskey a little bit of time in the glass here to actually find its place in the world. Let's notice this. It's very interesting. The very first thing I get is grape seeds. I get vanilla. I get a little bit of citrus. I get a little bit of leather. I get a little bit of a mint moment, actually. So I like this. This is good. It's a little floral, even. This has a lot more of the leather, a lot more of the sherry moment. I think Bunna and sherry actually go together very, very well. So I really wanted to buy a bourbon cask matured hand fill to actually feel and experience the spirit as it is, and not masked, changed, modified by a wine cask, by a sherry cask, by a port cask, by a rum cask, by a French oak rejuvenator, whatever else I have here. I have a total of 4 that I'm going to do a little series on. I'm going to actually take a total of 6 different Bunnas here at the end and just do a blind tasting and see what happens, if I can identify the different casks from Bunna or not. 55.1% Slancha. Mm. Mm. I do still get a little bit of that creamy leather moment. So it doesn't just come from the sherry casks. It must actually also come from the Bunna juice. Citrus. A little bit of pear. Still a little bit of that spearmint moment there. I don't get the grape seeds anymore. Nice. Nice. I would give this definitely a C plus, B minus moment here. Got a tiny little bit of a wood spice going on there as well. So I hope that it was a first fill bourbon. It just says bourbon barrel. It doesn't say first, but don't forget everyone had to write on the label. So this was bottled by is it a Daniel? So it was bottled on the 13th of August 2020. So let's see if you can see this. Yep. Unfortunately, it's not um, my signature on the glass, on the bottle. It's someone else. Now, if I could have one tiny, tiny little recommendation for Buna, if you could put the label also on the tube. Now, I know the tube is optional. We don't need tubes, but for taking them back with my suitcase, it was good to have the tube. And I have 4 of these, and they're all identical. And I have no idea what I have unless I open it up, pull out the bottle, and then see what I have. All right, so I know that is a tiny, tiny, tiny little thing here that Buna could do better. So, would I be willing to pay 140 euros for the big bottle? No, I'm sorry. That's just way too expensive for me and for my wallet. That's just me. Would I be willing to pay £40 again for this experience for the 20 milliliter bottle? Yes, I would do that. All right, so it doesn't even seem to be a real bargain here. So I find the pricing strategy a little bit interesting. The 140 for the 0.7 is basically broken down by 0.2 with the 40 euros. So I'm not buying a more expensive bottle with a bigger one. I'm actually buying the same price for the smaller one. I like the idea of the 200 milliliters. More people can try it. Now, during the COVID pandemic, that not many people made its way to the distillery. Well, that's something else. So that's why we have a 2020 hand fill here. All right, very good. Let's just take a brief little nip of the 12-year-old. In comparison to this is sweeter. That bourbony moment comes through, that nice vanilla wood. I get a tiny little bit more, I call it a sourdough moment over here. And also the sherry with a little bit more of that leather, a little bit more of a raisiny moment. Now, what I'm going to do, and I know you're going to probably say, that is blasphemy. I'm going to take a tad bit of this and pour it into that. Why? Because I think, personal opinion, that Buna is better with a tad of sherry. Not too much, just a tad. All right, sometimes they overdo it with the sherries, but I like my bourbons with a little, I like my Bunas with a little less sherry influence. I did love the cask strength from Buna 12, which was a heavily sherried cask influence, but putting this and this together here, I definitely think that I've created something which is of higher value. So I would finish this in a second fill sherry butt if I were the person in charge. Mm. Mm. Now, I did in my German video dilute this down with a little bit of water. It does not really change that much. It still remains nice. But the thing is, many people want to try a spirit from a bourbon cask. As natural, as pure, as unadulterated as possible. And so what I would have done is would have created another sherry cask that everyone says, oh, another sherry, another port, another wine, another this. Give me just Buna in a bourbon cask. And that is going to be the question. Do you know any Bunas in a sherry cask? No sherry, in a bourbon cask, no sherry influence. I personally don't know any. This distillery only, yes. Do you know of any Bunnahabhains in a sherry cask only? And best not peated. 65% of the production at the moment, Buna, is unpeated. Only 35% is peated. So, all right. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, tell others. And I hope you enjoy the series that I'm doing here on Bunnahabhain, the unique distillery. All the best. See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.